call the August 11th, 2020 Paulding County Zoning Board of Appeals meeting to order. Okay, first thing I'd like to ask if there is anybody with cell phones to maybe render them quiet at this time for us. And we've got an item on our agenda where we are to elect officers tonight, so y'all bear with us. And I'm going to open the floor for nominations. Anybody have a nomination for president?
Mr. Chairman, it's me.
Yes, sir.
The nomination would be to replace the former vice chair, which was Miss Seaver, so it would just be for a vice chair tonight.
For the vice chair tonight?
Mm-hmm. Okay. So.
What? You what?
Not it.
Well, okay, then we'll make it for the vice chair tonight. And I'm going to step out here as the chairman and make a motion that we or rather nominate David for our vice chairman. What are you laughing at?
You think that little of me?
I second it.
I think that's highly of you.
We have a motion and a second for David to be our chairman. Is there any more nominations? There being none, I'll close the nominations and I'll ask for a vote. All in favor of making David our vice chairman, raise your right hand. All opposed, same sign. Looks like, David, you have been elected.
Congratulations, David.
Yes, congratulations.
John messed up now.
Okay, now let me ask the manager again. We're not going to elect the president?
Of you're the acting chair, where you are the chairman this year. The other officer, vice chair.
Oh, I thought we had, we were electing.
We have already, I think we already elected Lee as the secretary.
Okay.
And so that should have been.
Okay, well, seemed like I'd be a little bit more on top of things, doesn't it? All right, next item is the minutes from June the 9th. Has everybody had an opportunity to look over the June 9th minutes?
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Okay, tonight we've got one variation to look at and discuss and all. Before I do that, I want to we don't have a whole lot of people here but I do want to make it understood that those that are here, we allow 15 minutes for the representative of the variance to discuss the variance and anyone that's in favor for it. That's a total time of 15 minutes. And we allow the same amount of time for those that are opposing. Now, I don't think we got anybody that's going to be opposing that. But anyway, when we do ask you to present your variance, if you would, state your name and your address, and then sign the podium, the roster at the podium. Okay. Tonight's variance is 2020-06-Victor. It's an application by H. Buddy Robinson Jr. on behalf of Southern Line, requests a height and setback variance on the construction of a 290-foot self-supporting cell tower within the R2 district. The property is located in land lots 293 and 294, District 19, Section 3, on the west side of Highway 101 North, across from the Golden South Parkway, Post 2. Okay, Mr. Robinson, if you would, you want to present your case for the variance?
Good evening, board members. My name is Clay Brogdon. My address is 3393 Chippenham Circle, Birmingham, Alabama. I've got a presentation to make tonight, and it'll be way less than 15 minutes. Again, good evening, board members. My name is Clay Brogdon, and I'm the recently retired manager of site acquisition for Southern Link. Southern Link has since engaged me as an independent consultant to represent them in all zoning and permitting matters of this type. Southern Link is a wholly owned subsidiary of Southern Company, and we are the wireless communications provider for Southern Company's 3 large electric utilities, including Georgia Power, Alabama Power, and Mississippi Power. In addition, we also provide wireless communications to numerous local, city, and state governmental agencies, other electric utility companies, and emergency management agencies as well. Some of our other customers include the Georgia State Patrol, the Georgia DOT, the Georgia Emergency Management Agency, and the Georgia Department of Natural Resources. These entities depend on Southern Link to provide reliable wireless communications, not only during their everyday activities, but especially after damaging storms, natural disasters, medical emergencies, and other critical and dangerous situations. Restoring power after storm damage is made much more efficient when using reliable wireless communications. Southern Link has made the decision to transition to a brand new, state-of-the-art LTE communication system for our voice and data needs. Because of a gap in our service, we are proposing this evening to build a 290-foot tall self-supporting tower off of State Route 101 in the Yorkville area of Paulding County to maximize coverage, capacity, and throughput data speeds in this area. In order to do that, we need the county to grant a special use permit and approve a height and setback variance. The county's tower ordinance has a height limit of only 195 feet. This creates a hardship for Southern Link because at only 195 feet, our coverage would be so significantly reduced that the project would not make sense. During the initial site property research, we investigated the target area for existing towers which would fill the coverage gap set forth, and there were none. While we did identify one tower close by, it was only about 200 feet tall, with at least one carrier located on it, such that the highest usable elevation would be 170 feet. Southern Link requires a minimum tower height of 290 feet in this area in order to fill the coverage gaps currently existing along State Route 101, State Route 373, U.S. Highway 278, and the surrounding area. Included in our application is a written justification with coverage maps showing our need for 290 feet in this area. Also, we have received a determination of no hazard from the FAA for a 290-foot tall tower in this location, and they are the federal agency that regulates and controls all airspace in the United States. The county's tower ordinance also indicates that towers must be set back the height of the tower plus 100 feet from all residential property lines and public right-of-ways. The adjacent property to the parent tract, in which setbacks are not met, are all owned by our landlords, Charles and Phyllis Watts. The actual setback to the public right-of-way, State Route 101, that we do not meet, is 279 feet. This parcel of property, although over 11 acres in size, just will not facilitate meeting the setbacks no matter where on the property you place the tower. In order to help justify the setback variance we need, I would ask you to consider the following. First, contained in our application for this project is a certified fall zone letter from a registered professional engineer from Sabre Towers. These towers are designed with large factors of safety not to fail, but in the unlikely event of an unusual weather catastrophe, this tower is designed to buckle at the location of highest stress in the tower and fold over onto the portion of the tower below. In the unlikely event of total separation, this would result in collapse within a radius of 250 feet or less. Thus, it would be contained on our leased parcel and not fall across the property line. And second, this site is rural in nature and located on a wooded tract of land to help buffer the view from the surrounding area. In fact, we conducted a visual impact assessment with photo simulations, and they clearly show that the tower would not be visually intrusive. Granting this request for special use and the required variances would not be contrary to the purpose and intent of the Paulding County Cell Tower Ordinance. In fact, it would serve it. The proposed tower would benefit the health, safety, and welfare of Paulding County by providing better coverage for cell phones, which according to the National Emergency Number Association make up 80% of all emergency calls. Further, the proposed tower would strengthen the Georgia Power smart grid system, which would allow Georgia Power to significantly improve response times to power outages in the area. If our request is not granted, then more towers would be needed to fill the coverage gaps mentioned above, leading to greater visual and environmental impacts. When weighing your decision to our request this evening, please consider first that if this new tower is approved by Paulding County, Southern Link will allow the county to co-locate their antennas on the new tower at the top and provide space on the ground for the county's public safety communications equipment, all at no charge to the county. This would allow the county to enhance its own communication system without having to invest tens of thousands of dollars in capital infrastructure and ongoing O&M expenses. Just to be clear, the county would be responsible for the cost of their equipment and installation of said equipment, but there would be no charge from the tower owner for the county's use of the tower and ground space. And second, a 290-foot tall tower would be tall enough to facilitate co-location by other wireless carriers such as Verizon, AT&T, Sprint, or T-Mobile. Thus, the need for only one strategically placed tower in the area. In summary, we need the county to grant special use approval and approve a height and setback variance for this project. The Paulding County Planning Commission and Board of Commissioners have both heard our request, and both boards voted unanimously to grant special use approval. And there was no opposition at either of those hearings as well. Based on the information I have presented and the benefit that this tower project will bring to enhance wireless coverage in the area for our very critical customers and for the residents of Paulding County, I respectfully ask for this board's approval of the height and setback variance needed for the project to move forward. This concludes my remarks. Jeff Butterworth, the area manager for Georgia Power Company for this area, was going to be here tonight, but they've been asked to shelter in place and not get out and try to, with the coronavirus the way it is. And so, but he wanted me to express their support of this project as well.
Can you answer some of the questions?
Certainly. I'm available to answer any questions, or at least make an attempt at any questions that you might have.
Well, just a couple I have here. I noticed the wind tested as, or the ultimate wind that they've got it approved for is 107 miles per hour. That's in a no ice condition. Has the study is what? Because I noticed this morning on the news that there was several places that had winds of over 100 miles an hour around the country.
Yeah, I mean, certainly winds over 100 mile per hour are rare. They do occur. But like I mentioned in my presentation, these towers are built with large factors of safety, even though the design wind speed is, if it's 107, I'll take your word for it. I haven't read that myself. But those amounts, design wind speeds are defined county by county and state by state by the code which governs this. It's an ANSI code. So the designers just go to the code, they look up what county they're in and what state, and that gives them the design wind speed that they've got to account for. So as you might expect, down on the coast, the design wind speed is going to be, much more than that.
Is this I noticed in one of the letters here that they mentioned a monopole tower.
No, this would be a three-legged self-supporting tower.
And it's a lattice.
Yeah, that's right. There's no guy wires associated
Yeah, no
with it.
guy
It's freestanding, but
Now,
there's three legs.
There's two out there right now. They're probably less than 200 feet high. That's the type tower that you're going back in there with, right?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I noticed on a letter here by Amy Herbis, she mentions she starts talking about the monopole tower, and I was just wondering, she gives something like a overall minimum safety factor of 25%. Her September 3rd letter of 19.
Yeah, she's obviously incorrect about that, in that we are doing a three-legged self-supporting tower and not a monopole. Let me see if she ever corrected that. I think I've got that same letter that you're...
I'm just kind of wondering if you could explain that 25% minimum safety factor.
Yeah, the towers are designed to be 25% over what the design wind speed would
Okay.
be. Yeah, so and that's what's called a factor of safety, which they design it to. So they don't just go to what the code states as the wind speed, but they actually build in 25% more than that when they do the design. And I've got let's see. I've got an updated letter from Sabre, let's see, Amy Hurst is the professional engineer who did this. And she's obviously talking about a self-supporting tower in this one. If you need to get a copy of that, you can see the date. This is March 13th of 2020. This older version is September 3rd. So it's been updated since what you have there, Mr. Hart.
I'm just trying to figure out how they would make a 300-foot.
Yeah, typically monopoles are up to about 250 feet. That's kind of
I've seen power companies.
Yeah, that's kind of the, if you get much more than 250 feet on those, the profile of them is so big around that they're much more visually intrusive when you get over about 250. In fact, I've only seen one over 250 feet in my life, and it is humongous. It's really big. So generally, monopoles are 250 feet kind of maximum and below. And then self-supporting towers can be, whatever height. But then if you get up to 400, 500-foot towers, those are typically guide towers with guy wires that hold them up.
You talk about this, zero radius fall. I could see that with the monopole, but with that.
Well, basically what happens is in the
buckle.
Yeah, the failure mode for a monopole and a three-legged tower are very similar in that they design somewhere up in the top third of the tower, they design a member in there that's going to be the weakest stress member. And if it ever encounters that plus the safety factor, what generally will happen is that thing will buckle over and just kind of droops over. If the catastrophe continues and gets worse than that and it dropped off, then they give you a radius there of where it would fall within, and that's what they're saying. If that were to happen, it would be contained within a 250-foot radius around the tower, and our minimum setback we have is 279 feet. So we would say that even in that worst case, if it fell and it took up 250 feet from the tower, it's still going to be on the property that we're leasing. And it wouldn't fall across the property line. And again, that's really rare. I mean, if that's happening, there's way more stuff in the way of trees that are coming down and all kinds of other stuff that's going on. It's not going to just be this tower out in that area that's
Well, you
in
know,
peril.
I was thinking about that too. You mentioned, I think you mentioned about the rooftops.
Mhm.
getting in there.
Rooftops are going to be coming off, trees are going to be
You're
coming
gonna
down.
You're gonna have antennas on this thing, which are gonna act like big sails that are gonna catch the wind too. That'll increase your wind friction there.
Right, and yeah, and that's what they use when they're designing these things too, is the sail area of those
Yeah.
antennas.
Well, do you happen to know, Mr. Brogan, how long the lease is gonna be for? Have any idea?
I don't have a copy of it. Generally, we try to get 30 years or more tied up in a lease, and they're generally on 5-year intervals. So we'll generally have like an initial 5-year term, and then maybe 5 or 6 5-year renewals after that that are at our option. As long as we want to renew, we give the property owner notice. We renew. As long as we're not in default or anything like that, then it will automatically renew for another 5-year term. But we tie them up for a long period of time because there'll be quite an investment
Yeah.
made in that site, and we can't do it for just a year or two.
Thank you, Mr. Brogan.
You're welcome.
I appreciate, I'm
Yes, sir.
sorry, I didn't meet you before to get the name right. But, you
No
can tell
problem.
Mr. Robinson you did a great job. Any further questions? Dave? Anybody else want to speak in favor of the tower? Anybody want to speak opposing the tower? We didn't have anybody to oppose it, did we, sir?
Mr. Chairman, just a quick note, we have not documented any opposition to this tower, and Mr. Brogdon is correct. The Board of Commissioners approved the special use on May 28th, which was required since it's in a residential district, and so he's correct, that did happen, and at that hearing also, there was no opposition.
Okay. Any further discussion?
I've got one question. Around the base of the tower, will there be a safety fence around it?
Yes, yeah, the compound, what we generally do is go in from the property owner and we'll lease 100 by 100, 100 foot by 100 foot square where we put the tower and the ground equipment. Does that show it there? Okay. But generally, we don't fence in 100 by 100. We may fence in 60 by 60 or 70 by 70, but there will definitely be a fence around it with barbed wire, probably 3 strands of barbed wire across the top of it to try to discourage people from climbing over and getting into it.
Do you have any type of video surveillance that actually monitors the site? I'm just curious about kids and
Yeah.
how.
No, we don't have, typically, we don't have video surveillance. I mean, I guess if we were in a problematic area, we probably would set up some video surveillance. But that site is completely monitored by, the internet and internal electronics inside of our equipment shelter that's monitored back at our switch center in Birmingham, Alabama. So they know at a moment's notice if the site goes off the air or if it gets in peril or if the temperature in the room gets too high. I mean, there's all kinds of alarms in there that will tell them what's going on inside that site and would allow them to either dispatch a technician out to investigate or not. But just typically, because we have hundreds and hundreds of sites, we don't put video surveillance unless there was a need to, and then we would.
What about the power that feeds the tower? Are you going to put a power line in underground to the tower? How does that work?
I don't know how power is run out there. Do you know, is that something that was brought up with you, Chris?
Most of them are run from conduit along the easement up to the tower.
Yeah.
And so the ones that haven't been in the past are going to that now.
We will typically set a transformer out near the road and then go underground from the transformer back to the site and power it that way.
I appreciate your presentation. It's very clear and precise.
Quite welcome, thank you.
Make a motion to approve.
Have a motion to approve?
Second.
Second. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, same sign. Motion is the variance is passed.
Thank y'all very much, I really appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Brogdon.
Chris, Buddy will be getting in touch with you, I'm sure, to work towards getting the building permit and whatnot. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for bearing with me. I don't know what that. We weren't supposed to, I think.
Mr. Chairman, just a note at this announcement at this time, right now we do have a September 8th meeting scheduled, and all information, I think we're already getting information out to you, and so
Yeah.
that'll be September 8th, and then also wanted this speak that we're sending our prayers and thoughts to Mr. Shield, that he gets back on his feet and feels better, and he's back with us.
Amen.
Yeah.
Amen.
Yeah. I wonder if, we get the minutes, when you send out the information, we can get the minutes for the previous meeting too. Because I got to read them before I get here, or I'll wind up holding the meeting up.
I guess we just motion to adjourn.
Second motion.
Second, meeting's adjourned.